Dark City seeks to understand the uncanny and the unknown, the unseen eldritch forces that lurk in the shadows and direct our fates. This channel seeks an objective and empirical analysis of seemingly otherworldly phenomena. Codes, symbolism, and secret languages are embedded everywhere around us. Media, the black mirror through which most view the world, has cast a spell upon the populace. Media's true purpose is couched in the very terms chosen to describe its functioning. From the use of television programming to broadcasting, its terms convey the utilization of a dark magic. It is a form of hypnosis at best, or something much darker at worst. Once again, come gaze into the black mirror and observe how the insidious technologies of Severance are but reflections of the same in Dark City.
Who are you?
The series Severance raises interesting questions about consciousness and identity. The premise of the show is intriguing because it parallels a suspicion I have had in regard to where my body might go or how it might be used when I sleep. I often feel unrested when I rise in the morning and sometimes experience muscle aches and pains, as well as small wounds or scratches I cannot recall sustaining while awake. I also awaken often having memories of dreams that seem to be more of actual events that happened rather than the more etheric, otherworldly substance of dreams. I often visit the same dreamscape, the very familiar environment with the very same atmospheres and feelings, and I wonder if this is indicative of a bleed-through or a reintegration, as it is referred to in the series. Severance's premise explores the philosophical underpinnings and the ethical ramifications of inserting a technological chip into the brain that is able to isolate a region for the designation of a separate identity that is sequestered from the primary memory reserves of the existing host identity. This alternate identity and its memories are compartmentalized and inaccessible to the host, and the entire historical and episodic memory reserves of the host are unavailable to the alter. The primary identity is aware of the alter's existence but has no access to its experiences or its duties when it is activated. The insertion of the chip creates a literal separate being, which in this case exists eternally in one place, a work environment in which its entire existence is confined to a very restricted environment that is rigidly controlled. Since the host identity remains ignorant of the separate identity's experiences, and more importantly, indifferent to its possible suffering, the alternate identity has no way to escape. It exists for all intents and purposes in a form of purgatory or hell, and its confinement, its very fate, is completely under the control of the host. Imagine finishing your shift and exiting the building only to find that you have walked through a door back into the same building to begin another shift with no time away. The severed process is a corporation's dream. It creates a worker whose labor can be exploited indefinitely and who has no legal recourse for maltreatment. The worker cannot communicate with the outside world, and no memory of what happens at the job can be transmitted to his outie. He is in essence a perpetual slave to be used at the whim of the corporation. Second, the severed workers can never reveal anything about the work they perform at the corporation. They, in effect, pose no threat to the corporation's agenda. They cannot leak information to the authorities if the corporation engages in illegal or unethical behaviors, nor can they betray the corporation by smuggling secrets to rival corporations. When Heliar tries to escape through requesting a resignation from her outie, the term used as a reference to the host or primary identity that resides in the external world, she is greeted the next day by a video message from herself that expresses with no compassion or consideration that her alter will never be allowed to leave, a decision which basically condemns this personality to exist in a hell-like existence at the whims of its host. This raised a concern for me, and I immediately wondered if somehow a similar relationship existed between my higher self and this current hell-like world in which I am forced to live. I have often wondered what would happen if I attempted to take my own life, suspecting that the attempt would somehow always fail, and I would awaken to discover that I had only made the situation worse for myself, such as now being forced to endure the same hardships and struggles, but with a diminished physical or intellectual ability. This is what Heliar's outie quite literally threatens her alter with if she tries to maim her body to coerce an extraction.
I am a person You are not. I make the decisions. You do not. And if you ever do anything to my fingers, know that I will keep you alive long enough to horribly regret that.
One of the alters begins to reintegrate, meaning he begins to have access to his outie's experiences. They bleed into his alter's mind, causing him to seek escape. This led me to consider that perhaps this is what happens to some of us in this world, whatever its nature may be. A simulation, a matrix, or an actual constructed exhibit that one sees in a zoo. Perhaps the creators or engineers must find new forms of control. This is what I refer to as the morphing labyrinth, an ever-changing maze of control that adapts and responds to the consciousness of its captors. The labyrinth erects new walls or shifts corridors to lead the prisoner back deeper into the maze as a means to prevent escape or glimpses of the truth. If this scenario is true, it raises questions as to whether this world is a test that grants escape and reward to those who transcend its deception, or if it's an intentional prison or farm designed to entrap our souls for harvest or some other mysterious usefulness. Or are we simply rats in an ongoing longitudinal experiment designed to measure our intellectual or spiritual capacities? How would we ever know if we were alters of a higher self or outie? Perhaps more disturbing, how could we ever be certain that we are not complicit? The bardo and the false light deception also figure into these concerns. How would we ever know? You are gazing into a literal black mirror. As you stare into the blackness, into the interminable abyss, someone or something stares back into you. Time loses all meaning, and all sense of self is dissolved. You are lost in its depths. The demons possess you through this portal. Like a labyrinth, the black mirror is a rabbit hole down which you are forever tumbling and from which you may never return. And your self-image will be remade into whatever form the dwellers within the darkness of the black mirror want you to be.
Didn't start asking the right fucking questions.